Okay, so today we are going to be talking about should you collect credit cards before confirming appointments? Because the whole reason why you're even considering this, right, is because no shows suck. Last minute cancellations suck, right? I understand the disruption that it causes in your flow and your business and the morale of your team. But there's really a lot of things that should be considered before deciding if you are going to pull the trigger and collect credit cards prior to confirming appointments. And I want to go over today what those considerations should be that you should really carefully evaluate to be able to make the right decision for your med spa. And then the next thing is, if you decide to collect credit cards prior to confirming appointments, what that should really look like, because it can successfully be done, but you want to make sure that you aren't impacting the number of appointments being requested or booked because you don't have the proper protocol, system, scripting, technology in place. So we're going to go over both of those things today. So what I would like to ask you is, in the chat right now, tell me if you are currently collecting credit cards, or if you're not, or if you are considering it but you're unsure, right? So no, I'm not collecting credit cards. Yes, I'm collecting credit cards. Or the third one is I'm considering it. And if you're watching this, you may be considering it. So you are in the right place, because I'm going to go over what those things you should be considering and how to best implement it. Okay, so yes, we're collecting. So what I'm seeing here is, yes, we're collecting from our existing clients once they are established. Now, Chantel, tell me, when you is it helping decrease no-shows with your existing clients that you have trust and a relationship? I'm really interested in hearing that. And Donnie, when you said, of course, yes, of course, what does that mean? Yes, of course. What does that mean? Share with me in the chat what you mean by that. I'm going to keep going here. So, okay. So, what I want to tell you when it comes to collecting credit cards is that it's not a one size fit all answers. There is definitely a time and a place that it makes absolute sense to collect credit cards. And there's absolutely a time and a place that you don't want to collect credit cards because you're making it that more difficult for people to schedule, which is going to decrease the number of opportunities. Also, if you aren't making it super easy for them to give you their credit card information, to build that trust, to be able to, again, feel comfortable to give you that information, you haven't earned the right to ask for that credit card information. So let's first talk about the things that you should consider and really look closely and evaluate prior to deciding if I am going to collect credit cards before confirming appointments. So the very first thing that you should consider is, what is your current capacity? What's your current capacity right now on your schedule in your med spa? And what I mean by that is, if you are so stinking booked with patients that show up and purchase from you, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense to collect a credit card, because you don't want to waste those money-making hours, right? With no-shows and last-minute cancellations. There's even like a bridge or an overlap, right? I have a client that if you want to see her, you have to put your credit card down. There's no free consultations. You have to prepay before you even get on her calendar. But for new patients that don't feel comfortable, then they can schedule an appointment, but they get a different provider, right? And so that's another way to do it as well if you have kind of unbalanced capacity with your schedule. But for many med spas, you are not at full capacity. In fact, there's very few med spas, even very successful med spas, that don't have a couple hours gaps here and there on the or 30 minutes here, an hour there, a couple hours here on their schedules. And so I want to share with you some really interesting information when it comes to whether or not you should collect credit cards in the data that we found with med spas all across the country when we tested all the different variations. But first, before I go into that, the second thing that I want to tell you is if you decide to move forward collecting credit cards, what is your process and your protocol for collecting that credit card? Because it's one thing to say, oh, yep, we're going to collect credit cards. And you just think that your front desk is intuitively going to know how to do that properly. And I can tell you, because I've seen it time and time again, if you think that it is so easy to get a stranger that you've never met to give you their credit card information online and or via phone, then I can tell you differently, because I've seen it time and time again. And so you really have to streamline your protocols and your systems. And I'm going to share actually on this training what that looks like and sounds like. All right. So first off, I want to go over what we found in our study when we've tested this with hundreds of med spas across the country of what gives the best result. Okay. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, because you really have to look at what's important to your med spa. So we do this time and time again where we do 3-month studies. So 3 months of not collecting a credit card to confirm an appointment. And we analyze appointment request, no shows and cancellations, and then total new patient revenue. Those 3 measures, okay? And we compare that for not collecting a credit card versus collecting a credit card via text only. And then the third one via text and phone call, okay? And what I can tell you is that every single time we've done this, we consistently see the same results. So if I was to ask you, I'm interested to know, what do you think generated the most revenue? Collecting credit cards, not collecting, or not collecting credit cards? In the chat, tell me, what do you think generated the most revenue? The most revenue, collecting or not collecting credit cards? I want to hear from you guys. Okay. And time again, people are like, oh, collect credit cards. But actually, I can tell you, reviewing hundreds of data points, that in fact, med spas actually generate more new patient revenue by not collecting a credit card. All right. But here's the interesting point, and this is going to be a no duh, right? Is the reality is yes, you do have a higher cancellation and no show rate when you don't collect a credit card, but you make more revenue versus collect a credit card, have fewer opportunities, make less revenue, but you absolutely have less no-shows and cancellations. So that's my whole thing, guys, is why there's no right or wrong one-way answer when it comes to this. You have to decide what is most important for your med spa. Majority of med spas are going to say revenue is most important. So when you, if you choose revenue being most important, then don't collect your credit card, but streamline the process as much as possible. Set yourself up as much as possible. Last week's training, we'll link it up in the notes again of the training on how to decrease your no-show and late cancellations. We'll link that up again to try to do whatever you can that you can control to reduce that. But that at the end of the day, it's going to happen, right? You could double book consultations. You can make smaller time frames for actual consultations in anticipation that a percentage of people are going to no-show and cancellation. You should absolutely have a protocol in place of when we have a cancellation or a no-show, this is what you should be doing to use your time. That doesn't mean you run to Starbucks. That doesn't mean you just go and play and check on Instagram, okay? You should have a protocol in place. Maybe you're working on your before and after pictures. Maybe you're creating video content. Maybe you're ordering inventory. Maybe you're pulling a report. Maybe you're calling patients for follow-up visits or check-ins, right? There's a whole number of things that you could be working on. But if you don't have a laid out plan in place of what you should be doing, what your team should be doing when you have a no-shows, then yes, that is going to feel like a painful waste of time that you are paying your providers for. So be thoughtful about that. Now, I have some clients, after we do it both ways, after we do 3 months of not collecting a credit card and 3 months of collecting a credit card, they come back to me and say, Caitlin, I actually would rather make less revenue and not have to deal with as many no-shows and cancellations, and I'll collect the credit card. I'm going to collect the credit card, and I'm okay with making less money because it's just too much of a disruption to my flow, to my mindset, to my team. Is that my preference? No, because I feel like if you have a plan in place of how to use your time when you have no-shows and cancellations, and you can plan for that, then you're going to take the revenue route, and it's actually less work for your team in scheduling those appointments. But I understand every med spa is different. Every med spa has different things that are important to them. So again, that's why I said that there is no right answer when it comes to this, but most of my clients would say revenue, new patient revenue is most important. So I am going to tolerate some of these no-shows and last minute cancellations to get new patients, to get that revenue. And then Chantel, I loved your comment saying that you don't require it for new patients, but for rebooking, you have that on file. Abso-freaking-lutely. I love that. We have a question coming in saying, why do you make less revenue when you require a credit card? Good question. So the reason why you make less revenue is because you get less opportunities, less appointments on your schedule. Because when you all of a sudden, when you start, whether it's via the phone or text messaging, when you all of a sudden ask someone for their credit card information, you lose them. They ghost you. They stop responding. They come up with excuses of why they can't give you their credit card, or why they shouldn't have to give you their credit card. Or I'll call you back tomorrow and I'll give you my credit card, and you just never hear them. And we know this to be true because we've analyzed this data very, very closely. All right. So again, long story short is that if you start collecting credit card, you can expect lower new patient revenue off of your direct response marketing efforts, but maybe you are willing to do that by not having to deal with the no-shows and cancellations. If you say, no, I'm not willing to give less revenue, then I would encourage you to make sure that, one, you're doing everything you can to decrease no-shows and cancellations. And then number two, have a plan in place of how your team should be using their time in the event when they're gonna have that no-show and cancellation. But here's the reality, guys. Even if you collect credit cards, you still have no-shows and cancellations. So you should have that in place, all right? Okay. So the next thing is, let's, what's an acceptable no-show percentage is a question that I just got. Okay, Johnny, great question. So this is, again, one of those loaded questions, right? Where it's something that you want to monitor, number one, and make sure that you are tracking regularly so that you can monitor and put plans in place to continue to try to decrease that. and then figure out what your med spa minimum threshold is. A lot of it has to do, like if it's body, the no-show rate is much higher for body consultation versus it is for a face consultation versus it is for a treatment that's transactional, very well known. They know what to expect. They know what the price is going to be before, and they know that they're going to get same day treatment, right? So all of those things vary, and what we're seeing is the average no-show and cancellation. So for body, you know, we're seeing anywhere between 40 to 60 or 70%, right? And again, those variables are like, how well known is your brand? What's your website look like? What's your social proof look like? What's your appointment confirmation? Are you sending them social proof, before and after pictures, and email indoctrination sequence? Are you calling them, reminding them with their appointments, sending them, you know, your Google map and Google reviews and links to financing and what to expect in your consultation? All of those things are going to be variables in what your no-show rate is. It's just not as simple from one med spa to the other, from one service to the other. So Donnie, I encourage you to first start tracking it, and then putting, and then going through the list of what can I do to decrease my no-shows and cancellations, start implementing those things, and then see how that's going to improve show up rate, because it's worth it at the end of the day. Think of a body or an RF microneedling, a filler, an Ulthera, like those high ticket services. We're talking anywhere between, you know, one new patient could be a couple grand, 5 new patients could be 10 grand a month. So it's absolutely worth doing the work once and implementing a really strong no-show cancellation to get them to try to show up, and tracking that monthly and making that a part of something that you really, really work on, Donnie. All right. So now let's transition into talking about, if you're going to collect credit cards, the best way to increase the chance of your success. So a couple things, and this is, first off, is just great front desk communication, lead management communication, that you should be doing prior to ever asking anyone their financial information, their credit card information, right? Have you earned the right to ask for their credit card, right? Have you given them, have you told them your authority builder statement? Also known as like your elevator pitch, right? What makes you different and special, why they should choose you. If you're talking to them about a specific experience, why is your med spa really known for getting the best results possible for that treatment? Explain that. Have you done over 1,000 treatments and gotten amazing results for your patients? Do you have over 100 5-star Google reviews? Have you had that treatment yourself personally and can attest to how they're going to love the results of that treatment? Okay. And then have you shared with them what they can expect in that consultation or with that treatment? So those are 3 things that you should make sure that is included in your scripting, in your conversation, to earn the right to ask for their credit card. And then you can transition. We do have availability on Thursday at noon for your RF microneedling treatment with Jenny. One last step before, and we can, one last step in your appointment on, you know, Thursday at noon will be confirmed. We ask each of our patients to place a card on file to secure your appointment. What card would you like to use to secure your appointment? So before I even asked for any information, I credentialed the med spa. I told them about their treatment and what they can expect, and the provider, and why they should choose my med spa before I ever ask for their information. Too often when people are like, we're going to collect credit card, they go straight to the jugular and they ask people for that very sensitive private information. And that's when you're going to get excuses of like, oh, I don't have it with me right now, I'll call back. And I don't feel comfortable doing that, or yes, great. I'll call back tomorrow and do that when I'm ready. All right. You hear all those excuses. So before you go and ask people their information, you really got to credential yourself, build value, build the excitement, tell them what they're going to expect, get them excited for their appointment. Then I'm much more likely to give you my credit card appointment. Okay. And then, you're going to thank them once they give it to you. You thank them. Your RF microneedling treatment with Jenny on Thursday at noon is confirmed, Julie. If you need to cancel or reschedule, please remember to give us at least 24 hours notice, or there will be a $50 no-show or late cancellation fee. Okay. So you get verbal confirmation. Great. Thank you, Julie. We look forward to seeing you. But then you also have to have that posted on your website. And then you also have to have that posted on a sign right at checkout. You have to have it on your new patient paperwork. You have to have it everywhere. So do you see the difference in just flippantly deciding that you're going to collect credit card and really having a protocols and scripting in place? We haven't even talked about the technology, right? Because how often do people DM you or text you to schedule an appointment? That's a whole nother conversation doing it there. And then you're like, okay, well, we'll call it and we'll do it over the phone. And now your team suddenly is chasing people, because how often do we actually pick up the phone? There's so many variables to consider, but there's absolutely a time and a place. But if you do decide to do it, one, make sure that you are collecting data on what the current status of revenue for new patients is and your no-show and cancellation rate, so that when you go and try to implement collecting the credit cards, you, for another 3-month time period, are collecting, tracking what your revenue, what your no-show and cancellation rate is, and then you can make an informed decision of what's going to be best for you. But very, very few med spas are at full capacity, or even really more than 40 to 50% at capacity. So that's why I always first recommend that you start with the path of least resistance for a new patient to give you their business, and that you really earn it. And then and start there. So time and time again, my clients choose more revenue and doing everything they can to decrease the no-show and cancellation rate, but more new patients, more new revenue. But we absolutely do have a few that just don't have any tolerance for it, and you do it that route and you have less no-shows and cancellations, but you don't get rid of them, guys. I can promise you don't get rid of them, but you do have less. But you make less new patient revenue as well. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that you are going to really carefully look at where your current capacity rate is, right? And then if you decide that you do want to test it, first get your numbers together of what your current no-show cancellation rate is and your current new patient revenue, so you have a baseline to compare it to. And then, but let me save you some time. And if you know that at the end of the day, revenue, new patient revenue is what is most important, don't try to spin your wheels with your team trying to implement collecting a credit card with new patients. I'd rather see you do the work once to try to check all the boxes on trying to decrease no-shows and cancellations as much as what you have control over. Right. And then do what Chantel was saying is, once you establish a trusted relationship with them, collect their credit card, have that on file, make it very clear what your no-show and cancellation policy is, and then continue to move forward. So I hope this is helpful for you, and make sure that you include in the comments what you are currently doing in your business. And after watching this training, let me know if you have changed your mind, or you're going to continue not collecting credit cards because revenue is what is most important to you. So thanks so much for joining me. I'll stick on for any questions here for a minute, but I know we went a little longer than normal but this is an important one. This is a big question that I get time and time again. And I just ask people, what's most important to you? Is it revenue? Or is it dealing with the not having to deal with the annoyance of no-shows, of cancellations? And that's really the biggest determining factor of if you're going to collect credit cards or not. But if you do decide to go that route, make sure that you have a really good, tight process and protocols in place, and that includes, technology and scripting and posting everywhere. So good luck to you. I hope you have massive growth and success in your med spa, and let us know if there's anything that we can do to support you in